Welcome back, Camly. As you know, I have a lot of pets. I got my first pet, well, I guess like since being an adult, the first pet that was like my pet 4 years ago. You know him, you love him, Ozzy Posy. But since then, I've gotten a lot more pets. I've been single for a really long time, and I don't know, I just need something to nurture and take care of. I've got a lot of love to give and a lot of outlets to pour that love into. And I always kind of wanted a big family with lots of kids. And then I had 2 kids, and I've decided that I'm not having any more kids, nor could I if I wanted to, because like I said, I'm very single. So I guess having lots of pets kind of fills that hole of wanting a really big family. Most of the pets that I have, though, I've gotten in the last year, and I just really fell in love with learning about animals and learning how to care for them and just really giving them the best care possible. I really pride myself in how well I take care of my animals, and I would not have this many animals if I didn't take incredible care of all of them. And I'm currently at capacity. Space-wise, there's just not a ton of space in my house for more animals, nor is there space in my schedule for more animals. So the animals I have now are all that I plan to have. So I'm gonna introduce you guys to all of my pets, let you get to know them, talk about their care, and also come along with me as I do all of the animal chores. Most of my pets have daily chores that I need to do, but then there's stuff that I do once a month, and it all kind of falls around the same time. So we're gonna get it all done today, and I'm gonna go in order of when I got my pets, starting with Ozzy, of course. This is Ozzy. He makes a lot of really gross sounds because his face is smushed. I'm gonna put him down. Like I said, I got Ozzy 4 years ago as a puppy. As far as dogs go, he's not super needy. You know, he's a smaller dog, and so they're a little bit less work, but Ozzy is very emotionally needy. He's an anxious guy. He's got a weird vibe. He's just so goofy. Anyone who's met him knows that he's just like, he just brings a really weird energy into a room, and I love it because I relate, you know, like we're both weirdos. He just has a staring problem is what it is. You know, most dogs like bark at you when you come into their home. Ozzy will just sit down right in front of you and stare at you, and he's really just begging for pets, but he's really polite about it. But with his big bulgy eyes, it can be kind of scary and intimidating. Like, you just never know what he's thinking. His eyes look really sad. Are you okay, bud? Like, he's a happy guy, but he always just looks sad. He has a resting sad face. He just looks really like uncomfortable. He's a really good boy though. As much as I try, I don't really think I could fully explain his personality. You just gotta meet the guy. He loves cuddles though, and if you give him attention, he will be your best friend. And he'll sit on you all the time. His personality is also kind of like a cat more than a dog, I'd say. He jumps up on the counter like pretty high. He's a really good jumper, much like a cat. He's just super relaxed. I'm honestly not a huge dog person. When we got Ozzy, I told Landon, I'm like, that's kind of your responsibility. Like, I don't really want a dog right now, and if we get a dog, like, that's your dog. Because we had a lot going on, but he really wanted a dog. And so we got him, and Ozzy fell in love with me. Like, me and him have always had a special bond, and he became my dog from the get-go. So yeah, that's my boy. Love him so much. As far as his like practical care goes, I let him outside as he needs. He just kind of scratches at the door when he needs to pee. I have a backyard, so, which the kids help with, like they can open the back door. So I'm like, hey, can you let Ozzy out? And of course, keeping his food and water full. Occasionally, I'll give him some wet food, like maybe once or twice a week, just as like a special little something, especially when we're having a dinner that like smells really good. If I'm like cooking some ground beef or something or bacon, I'm like, okay bud, I'm gonna give you your own little something because I know you can't bear it to not be eating this bacon. And then like once a week we'll go on a short walk. He can only get so far before wanting to be held. He sleeps in the living room on his little dog bed. I don't let him in my room because he snores a lot. And the only thing I really have to worry about with Ozzy is just making sure he's not getting into any food. There's no food left out. You know, with kids, they leave stuff around the house and don't always clean up after their snacks. So yeah, I just gotta make sure no one like walked away from some food that's just sitting on the table because he will climb up on the table and eat it. And then I groom him about once a week, which is just like a nice brushing, and then give him a bath as needed. He's a really good listener. He's gotten a lot better at understanding what I'm saying to him because for the longest time I was convinced that like he just doesn't have the intelligence to understand anything because he would just look at me with his Aussie look and he had me convinced that there was nothing up there. Love him to death, but you know, he's definitely not the brightest. So if I tell him to go outside, he'll go to the backyard. If I say like, let's go for a walk, he knows that we're gonna go for a walk. If I'm going in the car and he's coming with me, which sometimes he'll just like come run errands with me, I'll look at him and be like, are you coming, bud? You're coming with me? And he gets so excited and like runs to the car. Or if he's not coming, I look at him and I'm like, you stay, bud. You're not coming, bud. He honestly only responds to bud because that is what I call him. Like his name's Ozzy, but he's my little bud. And he kind of stopped responding to Ozzy because no one really calls him that. But that's his name. I guess he does respond because he's staring at me. You coming, bud? I'm just kidding. I'm not going anywhere. And that's Ozzy. He's the best boy. I'm getting the next shot set up and Birdie's in my drawer. Get out of my drawer. This is Cecilia. She is a ball python and they call them that because they curl themselves into little balls. She just shed and she is looking marvelous. I always forget the name of what morph she is, which is basically like her pattern and her genetic making, you know, what her parents were. So I'll put it on the screen because I can't remember. It's like leopard, het, clown, something or other. She's super sweet. I got her in December, so that would have been like 8 months ago or something. And I got her as a baby. I think she was no more than a few months old when I got her. I think she was born in October. Yeah, she was born in October, which I think she's a Libra. Slay. So yeah, she's like 10 months old. She's gonna turn a year here pretty soon. I've gotten some pretty crazy comments about me keeping a snake in my house, especially in a house with my kids in it. First of all, this is her enclosure. There's a locking mechanism on it. It doesn't look very strong, but it's strong enough to keep a snake in. There's a potential she could push the door open herself if I didn't jam it shut with this. But this goes in here, it can't slide. She is stuck. So there's no way she's escaping or anything. She's never bitten anyone, and even if she did bite, it would be harmless. She has no venom. Ball pythons are known for being one of the most docile, friendly, and harmless snakes. Also, the more you handle them, the more used to humans they get, the less likely it is that they'll ever bite. But it would pretty much be the equivalent of like a dog bite, especially with her being a baby right now. Like, it would barely hurt. So I take her out and handle her and let her explore. It's definitely like enrichment for her to be able to crawl all over me and crawl all over my room, obviously with a very close eye kept on her. So I try to do that like once a week for 30 minutes or so. And especially with her being a baby, it's really gonna make for a very docile big snake when she grows up, which they live for 20 years and they can grow up to 6 feet long. So she's gonna get much bigger than this. She's definitely a little baby. She likes the camera. As far as her care goes, most of it is just keeping up with the enclosure. What are you doing? Oh, she's looking at the fan. They need to be able to regulate their body temperature, so there's a warmer side of her enclosure with more heating, and there's a cooler side of her enclosure with less heating. Either way, they need it to be pretty hot. Around 86 to 90 on the hot side and like 75, 80-ish on the cool side. And they also need their humidity to remain about 70 to 80% most of the time. It's okay if it drops a little lower or if it gets a little higher at times, but just maintaining that humidity is probably the most important part about owning a snake, or at least a ball python. She has a water bowl that I keep filled with fresh, clean water every day. That also helps with humidity because the heat source kind of dries that water out, it evaporates, gets more humid. And then I also have a spray bottle. It's not really much of a bottle actually. It's huge. You need to do quite a lot of spraying and it would hurt your hand if you were just using a little spray bottle. So you just get this, spray water. I spray it all over her enclosure and it's mostly the bedding in her enclosure which maintains a lot of the moisture, which is a chore that I need to do today, is change out the bedding in there. I say bedding, it's essentially dirt. They live in dirt. So I need to do a deep clean of her enclosure, clean out any waste, scrub all the plants, scrub all the hides, the decorations, make sure everything is squeaky clean. And you can't do so with chemicals. You're supposed to use like a vinegar water solution. So yeah, I'm about to get that done, which is a once a month chore for her. More like once every few months actually. I spot clean her bedding, so if she does poop in there and I see it and I smell it, which it smells pretty bad, I'll go ahead and clean it up as needed. So it never gets too messy, but eventually you worry about mold, especially with all of the moisture in there. The only thing else that goes into her care is looking out for shedding, which happens again kind of every few months. And when they're in shed, you just want to keep a closer eye on them and really make sure that humidity is on the higher end, more close to 80, even 85. Birdie is trying so hard to get in here. She's not allowed around the snake because snakes and cats don't belong together. They don't. I don't think y'all would be friends. I think she would try to get ya. I had someone comment recently being like, what does your snake think of the cat? I'm like, they don't know each other. They've never met. They're separated. Ball pythons don't like friends. They don't want friends. Even my other reptile, my gecko, they've never met because there's no need to. Do not cohabitate your ball pythons with another snake or any other kind of animal. They just want to be alone. You and me both, girl. And last but not least, her diet. This might make a few people squeamish. She does eat a dead frozen mouse every week. I take it out of the freezer, let it thaw out, heat it up under some warm water, and feed it to her using tongs. I don't ever touch the mouse. I of course try and keep everything all sanitary and not just flinging mice around, you know. But yeah, get the tongs, and then she like strikes at it and wraps her body around it to kind of like suffocate it, even though it's already dead. And then she swallows it whole and poops it out. And I'm so proud of her. Ball pythons can be tricky because they're known to be really picky eaters. They can go on hunger strikes for like 6 months at a time and not eat anything. You're supposed to offer them food once a week, but they might take it, they might not. Cecilia is a pretty good eater most of the time. Skipped a few meals here and there, especially when she's shedding. She's not really trying to eat. Big yawn. Look at my cute little bracelet. But yeah, she was the first reptile I got and kind of what got me into having more pets. There was a lot to learn when it comes to taking care of a snake, and I had so much fun learning it and so much fun putting her enclosure together, and it really sparked my love for animals that I had when I was younger. Yeah, and she's just the best girl. I'm really lucky. All my pets are like super sweet. All right, I'm gonna go clean out her enclosure. I'm gonna put her somewhere safe while I do it. Don't lick my eye. This is Freckles. She is my crested gecko. They kind of change color when they're like waking up. She looks like she's about to shed though. So she looks pretty light right now, but as she kind of starts to wake up, she's gonna jump, she's gonna jump. She's gonna change color to like a more darker color. Her name is Freckles because she has a freckle right on her nose, a pretty big one. She jumped. I got her 4 months ago. She's pretty fun to handle because she jumps everywhere unexpectedly and really far. And she has little sticky finger pads and just climbs all over the place and is pretty fast. But you also want to be really careful when handling them because they're small and could get squished, and you don't want them to jump too far and like splat on the floor. There she is. So I don't handle her all the time, especially because she's nocturnal. She doesn't bite or anything. If she did, it probably wouldn't hurt. Coco loves to hold her and she does great at it, just like with Cecilia. I've really made it a point to teach my kids how to read the animal's body language, how to show respect, to be especially gentle, especially with the more fragile reptiles. Oh, she's crawling away. But yeah, just really want to make sure she doesn't get squished or jump somewhere that we can't get her out of. But yeah, she's super kid friendly and I think probably the girl's favorite pet. Girl. She looks like a little dinosaur with her spikes. They actually don't have eyelids, so to keep their eyes moisturized, they lick them. It's really freaky and really cool. She also has like really cool eyes. They're super pretty. She's gotten a lot darker, as you can see, just as I've had her out. Her enclosure is, here, do you want to jump back? There you go. Her enclosure is bioactive, which means that there's live plants in there, as well as isopods and springtails, which are little bugs that eat up poop, dead plant matter, mold, anything gross that might be going on in this little ecosystem. They're the cleanup crew. So because of that, I don't have to change out the dirt the way I do with Cecilia's enclosure. But I do have to keep an eye on things once a month, just do a little maintenance, clean the glass on it, clean up any poop that I can like visibly see. The plants in here aren't doing too well, so I'm gonna be kind of looking into that as I do her monthly maintenance. I might have to replace one of the plants in there, and it's sad because it was my favorite plant. I don't have plants anywhere else in my home because a lot of plants can be toxic to cats, and I have a cat. So I love that Freckles is keeping all my plants safe in there. And I also don't forget to water them because the same way I spray down Cecilia's enclosure, I do the same for Freckles and thus water all the plants. I do that once a day for Freckles. She needs a humidity spike at night. As you see, there's this super bright LED light, which is for the plants, so the plants can get all the light they need. But at night, I turn it off. Cecilia's light also turns off at night as well. I didn't really talk about that, but I have a UVB light for her enclosure as well as a heat lamp on top. But for Freckles, when this light goes off, she gets a little nightly humidity spike, and I just make it super humid in there. For her, the humidity gets up to like 90 at that point, but she has a lot more ventilation. There's a mesh top on top of this, so the humidity just kind of like leaves eventually. It's not really locked in there the same way that Cecilia's is. I also have this humidifier that goes next to both of the enclosures, It does stay closer to Freckles' enclosure though, and that just ensures that the humidity in my room doesn't get too low. So as the humidity changes throughout the day for Freckles' enclosure, it never gets too dry. Let's turn this back on now, because it is daytime. As far as her food, every other day she gets a little scoop of fig and insect flavored gecko food, and it's just mixed up into these little disposable cups and placed on this little mushroom ledge. It's a powder, you mix it with a little water, it turns into like a mush. She also eats live insects a few times a month, which is usually either crickets or mealworms. Before I feed the live insects, it gets coated in Repticalcium, which is just to make sure they're getting their calcium intake. One thing I do really need to get done is getting UVB lighting for the gecko's enclosure as well. Like I said, Cecilia has UVB. It's just really beneficial for your reptiles. She has the grow light for the plants, and that helps her have more of a day and night cycle, but the UVB would really help, especially with processing that calcium and D3 that she gets with the powder. But to make up for that, I just bring her into the sunlight, kind of in like the 48-hour window of her eating her insect for the month, week. It's like every 2 weeks she has an insect. So I'll let her eat that, have her calcium intake, and they just need some UVB rays to help them process the calcium. So eventually she'll have a UVB light and getting constant UVB, but for now, she just goes into the sunlight and sunbathes for a little bit and gets her UVB dose. Freckles is also expected to live 20 years, so her and her buddy Cecilia will be sticking it through for the long run. And she is due to get quite a lot bigger. Not crazy big, but like probably would fit on my whole hand and like really, you know, have some weight to her. She's not a baby, but she's definitely not fully grown. You might notice here I have another enclosure, and that was where my spider lived. My spider passed away. I had a jumping spider. Well, I had 3 of them. The girls each got their own, and then I got mine. They have a life expectancy of like 12 months. They don't live incredibly long. We didn't really have them for very long either. They just kind of died off one by one. My spider did live the longest, but it was pretty heartbreaking, and I'm not really looking to fill this enclosure up with anything else anytime soon. Feeding the spider was really tedious because they eat live bugs, and especially the jumping spiders, they need really tiny bugs because they're really tiny spiders. So acquiring and catching and feeding tiny live bugs was quite the chore. And while I miss my spiders dearly, I don't miss having to worry about that. Cecilia eats once a week, Freckles has her mush, and I make a lot less trips to the pet store. So I'm gonna do some maintenance on this enclosure, give the plants like a really good watering. Of course, they get some water every day when I spray her tank down, but I think they could really use like a full watering rather than just like a spray. And I think there's also just a bunch of dead leaves I could trim off. So yeah, let's go get that done. This is Lovio. I got Lovio about 3 months ago. He was originally named Elio, and then Dee Dee changed his name to Lovio. He has a 5-gallon filtered heated tank with a light source. I like it because this is obviously on my nightstand, and it kind of works as my night light. So when it's time for bed, I click that and we both go to bed. His care is pretty simple. He eats some flakes before bed. I also have some freeze-dried insects that I give him on occasion. There's also 2 snails in here. I think their names are Heart. We were going with like a Valentine's theme because Lovio was kind of Valentine's colors. I forgot what Dee Dee named them. I don't remember. Also, the snails look pretty identical, so I can never tell them apart. But there's 2 of them in there, and these snails do not reproduce, so I don't need to worry about finding snail eggs. The snails eat veggies like once a week, like random zucchinis and carrots and stuff. Just a little something extra for them to munch on. They also eat algae and like whatever they can find. Very similar to my isopods and springtails in my bioactive enclosure. They're the cleanup crew, and they just go around sucking everything up like a vacuum. But to make sure they're getting all the nutrition they need, I let them just kind of like eat on some veggies, and then I take the veggies out within like 24 hours, so it's not just sitting in the tank. Once a week, I kind of spot clean it and do like a 30% water change, which means I pretty much just like vacuum out 30% of the water, so it goes down quite a bit, and then I replace it with new water. And then once a month, I do a 50% water change. I actually find that keeping a fish tank is a little bit more work than my reptiles. You would think caring for a snake takes more. There's a lot to think about when it comes to your fish's water. So every now and then I test the water, check the levels of everything, and make sure that everything's safe. I also change the filter once a month when I do the 50% water change, as well as take out all the decorations, give them a good scrub, put him back. And yeah, that's Lovio. I love just staring and watching and just seeing him like swim around. Something about it is so entertaining, especially because my reptiles only move around at night. They don't really let me like spy on them the same way. Even the snails are just so fun because they just like crawl over the glass and you can see their little mouths moving. Guess what? Lovio also needs a monthly 50% water change, filter change, scrub down, complete refresh. The glass here is kind of like, there's like watermarks on it, so I need to like scrub that. And I'll probably feed the snails while I'm at it. Let's get to it. Last but certainly not least is my kitten, Birdie. I don't know where she's at. She kind of does her own thing, but sometimes when I call, she comes, so let's see. Birdie! No, not you, Ozzy. Ozzy always comes when I'm trying to call Bird. He's like, you talking to me? Not talking to you, bud. Stop, he's coming now. Bud, I'm trying to call the bird. I'm gonna go find her. Found her. She was sunbathing by the window. Oh, she's purring. This is Birdie. I got her like 2 months ago. Not even, almost 2 months ago. She's a pretty gray kitty, and she does not want to be held. I think she's about 5 months old. I don't know her exact birthday, but we've definitely gotten to know her personality a lot over the last few months, because she has a lot of personality. Super playful, super friendly, and very curious and adventurous, but also at the same time like super snuggly. Can definitely be lazy and will just spend like a whole day in my bed. I just feel like I got the best of both worlds when it comes to my cat's personality, because I feel like especially with cats, you just never know what you're gonna get, and I really wanted a cat to snuggle with but also play with, and that's exactly what I got. But yeah, I'll be like laying on my side and she'll just come snuggle up right here. Most of what went into preparing for getting a kitten was just getting my house prepared. She has her own window bed perch with a bird feeder on the other side, so she gets to like sit and watch the birds. She also has multiple cat scratchers and a cat tower. You know, I really tried to make this place feel like her own. And at first she was pretty shy and skittish, and over the course of like a week, she pretty much took ownership of this house. Like, She owns the place. There's not a corner of this house that she doesn't treat like her own territory. And that's what leads to a happy, healthy cat. So I'm super glad for that. Of course, she has a litter box that I clean once a day. She eats half a can of wet food in the morning and the other half of the can at night for dinner. I do add water to her wet food just to make sure that it's extra wet and she's getting all the hydration she needs. And of course, she always has access to clean water. Other than that, she's pretty self-sufficient. You know, she cleans herself. She's never not used the bathroom in her litter box. The only thing to watch out for with her is to make sure she's not stuck in a drawer somewhere, because I have gone to put my clothes in and see that she's just sitting in the dryer. So yeah, just making sure she's not getting stuck in all the silly places she ends up. I was pretty hesitant to get a cat, especially because I had just heard about how much chaos kittens are, but for a kitten, I think she's pretty chill. I play with her toys with her every day. She gets her energy out, and she's pretty well behaved and sweet. No more chaotic than my house is already. She fits right in with the chaos. And that's all my pets. Anytime you're thinking about getting a pet, do your research. If you think just based off watching this video, you know how to take care of a snake or a gecko or even a fish, the things I mentioned were just the basics, and I'm sure there's stuff I forgot. Don't get a pet unless you know that you could provide them with everything they need, and make sure you really know what you're doing. And I don't want to shit on all pet store employees, but don't just listen to a pet store employee either. A lot of them give misinformation. So yeah, just be responsible and really think before getting an animal. All the animals I have, I spent weeks doing research before I made a decision to get them. It happens so often that someone gets a pet and it ends up neglected, whether that's just a lack of proper care knowledge or just a lack of compassion. I have all these pets because I love taking care of them. It's really fun for me, and I knew exactly what I was committing to when I got them. So yeah, that's all. Be responsible. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I really enjoyed introducing you guys to all my pets. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video, Camille.